I heard the crash before I even got to my morning coffee. A harsh, stomach-turning scrape of metal on concrete, followed by a blaring honk that made my dog yelp and dive under the table. I bolted to the front door, heart racing, already bracing for something awful. And there she was, Linda, the HOA tyrant, her SUV half on my lawn, front bumper cozying up to my flower bed like it was on a date. She stood outside, arms crossed, her face twisted in fury as if I'd insulted her entire family tree. "What is this?" she shrieked, jabbing a finger at the low wooden fence I'd installed the day before. "You've blocked the shortcut. I've been using this driveway for months. Do you know how much time I lose taking the long way?" I stared, speechless. My driveway. My property. And she was screaming at me like I'd trashed her car instead of the other way around. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, but it wasn't easy. "Linda," I said, voice tight, "this is my driveway, not a public road. You've got no right to use it." She scoffed, waving a manicured hand like I was a pesky fly. "That's absurd. The HOA allows it. Everyone knows this is the quickest way out of the neighborhood. Why are you being so difficult?" I fought the urge to laugh at the sheer insanity of it. "The HOA doesn't own my property, Linda. I do. And I'm tired of you treating my yard like your personal highway." Her face darkened, and she leaned in, voice dropping to a patronizing whisper. "Listen, Han, I don't care what you think the rules are. I've lived here for 15 years. You're just the newbie trying to stir things up. It won't work. This driveway's always been the shortcut, and it always will be." My fists clenched. This woman was unbelievable. For months, I'd watched her speed through my yard, tearing up my gravel path without a care. I'd tried everything. Cones she'd moved, a gate she'd smashed, even HOA complaints with video proof of her trespassing. All I got were shrugs and excuses. "Linda's been here forever. We can't change things now." And now she was back, acting like I was the villain for stopping her. "I'm calling the HOA," she snapped, yanking out her phone. "They'll handle this." I laughed, no humor in it. "Go ahead. Let's see how that goes." She glared, then stomped back to her SUV, struggling to back off my lawn, leaving muddy tire tracks behind. As she sped off, my blood boiled, hands shaking with anger. This wasn't just about a driveway anymore. This was war. That afternoon, an email from the HOA popped up, a formal notice, not for Linda, but for me. "Dear homeowner, we've received complaints about unauthorized modifications to community access pathways. The recent fence on your property disrupts neighborhood traffic patterns. Please remove it immediately to maintain community harmony. Sincerely, HOA Board." I stared at the screen, rage simmering. Unauthorized modifications? Community harmony? They were backing Linda. I stormed to the HOA office, ready to unload, but when I walked in, there she was, smirking from the corner, chatting with the board like they were best buds. She shot me a triumphant look, already knowing the game was rigged. "Mr. Carter," the HOA president, George, said, barely glancing up from his papers, "we were just discussing your, landscaping changes." I crossed my arms. "You mean the fence I put up to stop Linda from illegally driving through my yard?" A few awkward coughs, exchanged glances, then someone piped up, "Well, Linda's been using that path for years. It's kind of a neighborhood tradition." I couldn't believe it. "So my property's community property now? She has no right to my driveway." George cleared his throat. "Technically, no, but nothing." I cut in. "You're siding with her because of tradition while she wrecks my lawn and endangers my family?" Linda gave a fake laugh. "Oh, come on. It's just a shortcut. You're overreacting." I took a slow breath, forcing calm. I could argue all day and get nowhere. The HOA was in Linda's pocket. It was time for a new plan, something big to ensure she'd never touch my property again. That night, I sat on my porch, staring at the torn-up grass where her SUV had plowed through. My mind churned with ideas. A taller fence. She'd bypass it. Motion sensors? She'd complain. Cameras with alarms? Not enough. Then it hit me, a slow, wicked grin spreading across my face. A hedge maze. Not just any maze, a twisted, maddening labyrinth to trap her like a mouse in a trap. I could see it. Tall, dense greenery, dead ends, tricky turns, a masterpiece of frustration. If Linda wanted my yard as her shortcut, let's see how she liked getting lost in it. The next morning, I called a landscaper who specialized in fast-growing hedges. When I pitched my idea, he chuckled deeply. That's the pettiest thing I've ever heard. I'm in. And so it began. Linda had no clue what was coming. I spent days planning every detail. This wouldn't be a simple row of bushes. It'd be a full-on labyrinth. After research, I picked Japanese boxwood. Thick, resilient, perfect for shaping into a green wall. The landscaper loved it. We'll make sure your uninvited guest regrets ever turning in here, he said. Work started fast. We designed it to lure her in, looking like a normal driveway at first, then splitting into a fork, one path a dead end, the other looping back. Hidden turns, tight corners, fake exits. It'd be a living puzzle, growing trickier as the hedges thickened. By day 3, the maze was taking shape. I could already picture Linda's face when she hit her first dead end. That evening, as I sipped coffee on the porch, her SUV rolled by slowly. She hadn't tried my driveway since our last clash, but I knew she was watching, waiting for the HOA to make me tear down the fence. I just smiled. Let her think she'd won. By week's end, the maze was done, still growing, but confusing enough to work. I added a small sign at the entrance, shortcut closed. Welcome to the maze of doom. The next morning, I didn't wait long. Over breakfast, I heard her SUV's rumble, the confident way she always sped in. Except this time, she hit the maze. Silence, then tires crunching as she hesitated. I peeked out the window, grinning as her SUV vanished into the hedges. She'd taken the bait. At first, she drove slowly, probably thinking I'd left a path. Then her brake lights flashed, dead end. She backed up, tried again, another dead end. Panic set in. She reversed too fast, nearly hitting a hedge, then lurched forward, turning sharply into yet another wall. The horn blared. Once, twice, like the maze would move for her. I stifled a laugh. She was honking at bushes. Minutes later, her door slammed. She was out, stomping through on foot. Even better, I stepped outside, leaning on the porch rail, watching her disappear and reappear in the same spot, groaning in frustration. After 10 more minutes, she emerged, hair wild, face red, and stormed over, pointing at me. This is harassment. I raised an eyebrow. Harassment? I didn't make you drive in there, Linda. That was your choice. Her eyes blazed. You know what you did. This is an abuse of landscaping. I'm reporting you. I whistled. Abuse of landscaping? That's creative. Go ahead, report me. She growled, stomped back to her car, and sped off. But I knew she'd be back. She wasn't one to quit. Sure enough, the next morning, an HOA email arrived. Dear homeowner, reports indicate an obstruction affecting neighborhood pathways. The hedge structure disrupts traffic flow. Remove it or face further action. I laughed. They were trying so hard to sound official. Linda had clearly run to her cronies, playing victim. I replied with cold logic. The hedge is on my private property, fully legal, and enhances my yard's appeal. I look forward to your response. They had no power over this, and I'd make sure they knew it. That afternoon, trimming the hedges, I caught Linda glaring from her driveway. Ignoring her, I whistled away, but she marched over, heels clicking. This is ridiculous, she snapped. You think you're clever? I smiled. Yep, thanks for noticing. Her nostrils flared. The HOA will make you take it down. I shrugged. Doubt it. It's all legal. She tried a new tack. Look, I don't want to fight. Let's be adults. That shortcut's been there for years. People rely on it. You're making life hard for everyone. I tilted my head. Everyone? Because I only see you complaining. Her eye twitched. You don't get how much you're inconveniencing people. I gestured to the empty street. Where's the outrage, Linda? All I see is you, mad you can't use my yard. She stormed off, jaw clenched. Next day, I caught her at the maze entrance with shears, ready to hack through. Linda, I called, check the rules about damaging private property before you start. She froze. This is obstruction, she argued, but doubt flickered. No, that's vandalism, I said. Pretty illegal. She huffed and left, but that evening, she escalated, called the cops. Red and blue lights flashed outside. I stepped out to find Linda, smug, with 2 confused officers. Thank you, officers, she cooed. I'm reporting a community access obstruction. One turned to me. Sir, what's going on? I pointed. That's my driveway. Linda kept driving through, so I built a hedge maze to stop her. He blinked. A hedge maze. Yep. He turned to Linda, sighing. Ma'am, is it on his property? That's not the point, she sputtered. It's a disturbance. The officer rubbed his nose. Does she have a right to your driveway? Nope, I said, smiling. He nodded. No crime here, ma'am. It's his land. Linda fumed. This is childish. He's spiting me. The officer shrugged. Being annoying isn't illegal. I bit back a laugh as she stomped off, defeated. For now. But Linda wasn't done. The next morning, the HOA president, George, showed up with her, clipboard in hand. Mr. Carter, he began. We need to discuss your landscaping. I leaned on the doorframe. You mean my maze? Linda sighed dramatically. You ignored our warnings. George added. The HOA voted. Your maze is an unauthorized obstruction. Remove it within a week or face fines. I laughed. An obstruction? It's on my land, not yours. George shifted. HOA rules ensure neighborhood flow and safety. Safety, I echoed. How's a hedge unsafe? Linda chimed in. Someone could get lost. What if emergency vehicles need access? I smirked. Emergency vehicles don't use private driveways, Linda. George pressed. You have a week, or we'll take legal action. Linda smirked wider. You don't want to fight us. I nodded, then handed George a folder. He frowned, flipping it open. Zoning laws, city regulations, a lawyer's statement confirming my maze was legal. His face paled. Linda's turned sour. No, she muttered. The HOA has authority. Not over my land, I said. George sighed. We'll review this. Take your time, I replied. But if you find me, I'll sue for harassment. Linda hissed. This isn't over, and stormed off. 2 days later, she was back with landscapers. They're removing this mess, she declared. I laughed. Good luck. She waved at the workers. Go ahead. One hesitated. Ma'am, are you the owner? Her smugness faltered. I'm on the HOA board. He frowned. That's not what I asked. I stepped in. I'm the owner. The workers backed off. We can't touch it without his okay. Linda turned red. I'm ordering you. The landscaper shrugged. Legally, I can't. I grinned. You should go before I call the cops for trespassing. She grabbed clippers herself, charging the maze. I filmed. Keep going, Linda. Let's see how far you get before the police arrive. She froze and screamed, hurling the clippers down and storming off. Another win. But Linda went nuclear that night. I woke to rustling, then snapping, someone hacking my maze. Security footage showed her swinging shears like a madwoman. I grabbed my jacket and found her in the maze's center, sweating, surrounded by mangled hedges. Linda, I said, arms crossed. She spun, panicked, then defiant. This is illegal. You tricked me. Tricked you, I said. You're vandalizing my property at 2 a.m. She shook. You forced me. That shortcut's mine. I sighed. It's my land, Linda. She bolted, but her own cuts made the maze worse. New dead ends, twisted paths. I followed slowly, letting her tire out. She burst out, collapsing on my driveway. Call the cops, I said, or I will. She groaned. This isn't fair. I called them. She tried. I was confused, lost. I showed the video. Ma'am, an officer said, you're under arrest for trespassing and damage. Cuffed and silent, she was gone. The HOA distanced itself from Linda, removing her from the board. My maze became a hit. Kids played in it. Families snapped photos. For Halloween, I turned it into a haunted maze, a neighborhood star. Linda stayed quiet, avoiding me, though I'd catch her peeking from her blinds. Then one night, I saw her at the maze entrance, staring. She stepped in. 10 minutes later, a groan echoed. She was lost again. I smiled, closed my door, and let her figure it out. Some people never learn.